Luneth Ashenmore's blood painted the packed square cobblestones in crimson arcs as Beta Torvin's boot connected with her ribs for the third time. The crack echoed through the silent gathering like a death knell, and Luneth's wolf whimpered deep inside her consciousness, too weak, too broken, too silver-poisoned to surface and defend them. "Disrespectful Omega bitch," Torvin snarled, his eyes flashing that dangerous amber gold that marked the presence of his wolf. His lips curled back, revealing teeth that were just a bit too sharp, too predatory. "You think you can look an enforcer in the eye? You think you deserve to breathe the same air?" She didn't answer, couldn't answer. Her mouth was full of blood and broken promises, promises she'd made to herself 3 years ago, that she'd survive this, that she'd find a way out, that someone would notice what Alpha Kalen's pack was doing to her. No one ever noticed, or if they did, they looked away. Torvin's hand fisted in her hair, yanking her head back so violently something in her neck popped. Through her swelling eyes, she caught glimpses of the pack watching from their windows, curtains twitching, faces quickly disappearing. Even the children knew better than to witness what happened to Omegas who forgot their place. "Load her in the truck," Torvin said, breathing hard from the exertion of beating someone who couldn't fight back. Blood flecked his lips where his wolf was pressing too close to the surface, eager for more violence. "Dump her in the Northern Territories, territories full of rogues this time of year. They'll finish what we started." 2 enforcers grabbed her arms, careful not to touch the silver collar clamped around her throat, the one that had been burning into her skin for 3 years, suppressing everything that made her a wolf instead of just prey. The enforcers threw her into the truck bed. The metal was so cold it burned against her cheek. Through the haze of pain and the silver collar's constant suppression, she felt her wolf stirring one last time, not in strength, but in mourning. "I'm sorry," Luna thought to the broken creature inside her. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to save us." The truck's engine roared to life. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the pack house lights growing distant, every window now dark, as if the whole pack had decided simultaneously that what happened tonight was better forgotten. She woke to cold. Not the kind of cold that made you shiver and pull a blanket closer, the kind that seeped into your bones and made a home there, the kind that whispered that sleep would be so much easier than fighting it, that letting go would feel like mercy. Luneth's eyes cracked open. Snow. She was lying in snow, and the storm was coming down so hard she couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. The truck's taillights were long gone. She was alone at the territorial border, the place where pack land ended and the Northern Territories began. The place they dumped wolves they wanted to disappear. Her body screamed as she tried to move. Broken ribs, definitely a broken rib, maybe 3. Her left arm wasn't responding right, and when she coughed, blood spattered across the pristine white snow like a red flower blooming. "Get up," her wolf whispered, so faint she almost couldn't hear it over the wind. "We have to get up." "Why?" The word came out as barely a rasp. "So we can freeze standing instead of lying down?" But she tried anyway, because that's what 3 years of abuse had taught her. You always tried. You tried until you physically couldn't anymore, and then you tried a little more, because the alternative was admitting that Torvin was right, that Kalen was right, that she really was worthless. She made it to her knees before her strength gave out. That's when she heard it. A low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the frozen earth beneath her. Then another. And another. The sound multiplied, layered, became a chorus of predators surrounding her in the darkness. Rogues. They'd dump her where the rogues hunted. Luneth's broken laugh turned into a cough that brought up more blood. Of course Kalen would make sure she didn't just freeze. He'd make sure something ate her first. More thorough that way. Less chance of anyone finding a body and asking questions. She forced her head up, ready to face her death with her eyes open, and froze. Through the swirling snow, eyes stared back at her, dozens of them, 50, maybe more. But these weren't the feral gold of rogues driven mad by isolation and hunger. These eyes burned amber and ice blue, colors that didn't exist in nature, colors that lived in legends and nightmares and stories old wolves told to scare young pups. The Shadowborn. Valor Frostborn's ghost pack, the wolves that weren't supposed to exist. No, she whispered, because her mind was breaking now, had to be breaking. Blood loss and cold were making her hallucinate. There was no such thing as the Shadowborn. They were stories, myths, things desperate wolves invented to pretend there was justice in a world that had none. But the eyes didn't disappear. And then the largest wolf she'd ever seen stepped forward, massive and white as the snow around them, his fur seeming to drink in moonlight and breathe it back out as something more, something other. He shifted. One moment, a wolf larger than any natural predator. The next, a man who looked carved from winter itself, all sharp angles and ice-pale skin and eyes that burned with an intensity that made her broken body try to curl in on itself. Not from fear, from recognition. Her wolf, nearly dead inside her, suddenly screamed to life with a desperation that tore through Luneth like a lightning. Mate, ours, mate. No, she said again, but the word had no strength behind it. I'm sorry we waited so long. His voice was rough as glaciers cracking, deep enough that she felt it in her chest where her wolf was suddenly clawing, screaming, begging. He knelt in the snow beside her, and his hand, so warm it burned, pressed against her chest, right over her failing heart. But they're never touching you again. You're not real, she managed. Shadowborn aren't. We're real. His other hand came up to cup her face with a gentleness that made tears freeze on her cheeks. And we've been watching you, Luneth Ashenmore, watching and waiting for Kaelin to make a mistake big enough that intervention wouldn't start a war. Tonight, he finally did. Her vision was graying at the edges. She was dying, had to be dying, because her wolf was throwing herself against her rib cage, trying to reach this impossible male, and the silver collar should be stopping that, should be keeping her weak and broken and... You're mine, he said, and there was something in those words that sounded like a vow and a threat and a promise all at once. You've always been mine. The moon goddess marked you for me before either of us drew breath, and I will not let you die in the snow like something disposable when you are the most precious thing I will ever hold. My color, she started. His hand closed over the silver. She felt his power, ancient and vast and utterly foreign to anything she'd ever encountered, slam into the metal. The collar didn't just break. It shattered. 3 years of silver poisoning, 3 years of suppression, 3 years of manufactured weakness, it all broke apart like glass. And her wolf surged forward with a roar that shook the snow from nearby trees. That's it, Valor whispered, and she realized she was glowing, actually glowing, her skin lit from within by power she'd forgotten she possessed. There you are. There's my mate, my Luna, my... He didn't finish because she was screaming, her back arching as the mate bond snapped into place with the force of an avalanche. It felt like dying and being reborn in the same breath, like every nerve in her body catching fire and every cell rearranging itself into something new. The broken bones healed, the internal bleeding stopped, even the bruises faded as power, his power, her power, their combined power, flooded through her veins like molten gold. When the transformation finally stopped, Luneth lay gasping in the snow, completely healed, staring up at a male whose eyes reflected 50 wolves standing guard in the shadows. "Welcome back," Valor said softly. "Alpha Luneth Ashenmore, daughter of Alphas, my fated mate." His smile was sharp as broken ice, and the last mistake Kalen Blackridge will ever make. Behind him, 50 wolves lifted their heads and howled, a sound of challenge and promise and coming retribution. And Luneth, for the first time in 3 years, howled with them. Chapter 1. The silver color had been burning into my throat for 1,095 days. I knew because I'd counted every single one, scratching marks into the wooden post in the basement where they kept me when I wasn't useful. 1,095 days since Alpha Kalen's patrol found me in the ruins of my family's territory, covered in ash and blood that wasn't all mine. 1,095 days since he'd looked at me with something like pity and said, "You're safe now. You're one of us." The collar came 3 days later, once the shock wore off enough for my wolf to try surfacing. "Just a precaution," the pack physician had said, not meeting my eyes. "Your rank collapsed from the trauma. Hierarchical fracture, we call it. The silver will keep your wolf from hurting herself trying to shift when she's not strong enough." I'd believed him. Moon Goddess help me, I'd actually believe them. "Eyes down, Omega." The enforcer's voice snapped me back to the present, to the pack square where I was scrubbing blood from cobblestones. Someone's blood. I didn't ask whose anymore. In Kalen's pack, asking questions was how you earned your own bloodstains. But my neck ached from 3 hours bent over stone, and for just a moment, just one stupid, thoughtless moment, I'd looked up as he passed. Our eyes met. His hand was around my throat before I could even flinch, slamming me back against the stone so hard my skull cracked against it. "Did I say you could look at me?" "No, sir, I'm sorry." His fist caught my cheekbone, and the world went white. I tasted copper, heard shouting, then Beta Torvin was there, and the shouting got louder, and someone was dragging me upright while my legs tried to remember how to work. 3 years, Torvin said, his breath hot against my ear. 3 years we've fed you, housed you, kept you safe from the rogues, and you repay us by disrespecting our enforcers? The first kick cracked my ribs. The second made me taste copper all over again. By the third, I'd stopped trying to curl into a protective ball and just let it happen, because fighting only made them angrier, and when they got angry, the beatings lasted longer. Through the haze of pain, I saw windows filling with faces. The pack was watching. They always watched, and they always looked away at exactly the right moment to claim they hadn't seen anything. "Worthless Omega trash," Torvin spat, literally spat on me. "Alpha Kaelen saved you from death, and this is how you thank him?" Saved. That word again, as if I should be grateful that the night rogues slaughtered my parents. Kaelen's patrol just happened to be close enough to hear the screams. As if I should thank him for pulling me from the flames of my childhood home and bringing me here, where I learned there are worse things than dying. Like living without your name meaning anything. My father had been Alpha Marcus Ashenmore, my mother, Alpha Vera. I'd been their daughter, their heir, someone with a future written in bloodlines and pack alliances. I'd had a bedroom with windows that let in morning sun. I'd had friends who called me by name instead of Omega like it was a slur. Now I had a silver collar and a basement post with 1,095 scratches. "Load her in the truck," Torvin said. His face was flushed, eyes too bright. He'd enjoyed that. "Northern Territories, let the rogues have her." The world tilted as they dragged me toward the pickup. I caught a glimpse of Kaelen watching from his office window, expression unreadable. He'd know what this meant. Everyone knew what happened to wolves dumped in the Northern Territories. They became statistics, cautionary tales, memories that faded faster than bloodstains in the rain. The truck bed was so cold it burned. I watched the pack house lights recede as the engine growled to life, and I thought about my mother's last words to me. "Remember who you are, Luneth. No matter what happens, remember your name means something." But as Torvin's truck carried me toward my death, I couldn't remember what it meant anymore. Just that once, a long time ago, I'd been someone's daughter. Now I was just waste being disposed of. Chapter 2. The rogues never came. Instead, the forest itself seemed to shift, and suddenly I wasn't alone anymore. Wolves emerged from the darkness, not the ragged, feral creatures I'd expected, but massive warriors with coats like winter storms. 50 of them, maybe more, their eyes gleaming amber and ice blue in the moonlight. They moved with the precision of trained soldiers, forming a defensive circle around me, and I realized with a jolt that they weren't rogues at all. They were pack, organized, powerful. The largest wolf stepped forward, and the air rippled with authority so intense it made my knees buckle. When he shifted, I had to look away from the sheer presence of him, tall, dark-haired, with eyes the color of frozen rivers, and a face carved from violence and sovereignty. Luneth Ashenmore. His voice was glacier deep. "I've been waiting for you." I tried to speak, but my ribs chose that moment to remind me they were broken. The world tilted. I tasted blood. He was beside me before I could fall, catching me with impossible speed. "I am Valor, Alpha of the Northern Crest Pack. I've been watching Kalen's territory for months, watching what he did to you, waiting for him to make a mistake egregious enough to justify intervention without starting a war between our territories." "Congratulations," I managed. He finally dumped the trash. "You're not trash." His jaw tightened. "You're the daughter of Marcus and Vera Ashenmore, and you should never have worn that collar." Something in my chest stuttered, not my ribs, something deeper. My heart, struggling against the damage, against 3 years of silver poisoning and systematic brutality. The world was getting darker around the edges. "You're dying," Valor said, and for the first time his control cracked. "Your heart is failing. I can save you, but you need to understand what that means." I could barely hear him over the roaring in my ears. "What?" "You're my mate. I've known since the first time I saw you through those pack house windows. The bond is there, dormant, waiting." His hand came up to my face, and his touch burned like fire and ice. "I can complete it now, force your body to heal, but I won't have your consent, and that makes me no better than—" "Do it," the words scraped out of me. "I don't want to die like this." His eyes closed. When they opened again, they were pure wolf. "If you survive this, if you want to leave after you've healed, I'll let you go, but I won't watch my mate die because of protocol." He bit his own wrist and pressed it to my lips. The taste of his blood hit my tongue like lightning. The bond snapped into place with the force of a thunderclap. Power exploded through my veins, wild, ancient, unlimited. My wolf surged upward after 3 years of imprisonment, and I felt the silver collar fracture, then shatter, pieces of cursed metal falling away like dead skin. My ribs knitted together, my heart steadied, strengthened, began beating in rhythm with another pulse that wasn't mine. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was Valor's face, and the first thing I felt in 3 years that wasn't pain was the absolute certainty that I was no longer alone. My wolf howled in recognition, in rage, in relief. And then there was nothing but healing sleep and the electric hum of a bond I didn't choose. Chapter 3. I woke to stone and starlight. Not the damp basement stone I'd grown accustomed to, but smooth granite walls that soared overhead, embedded with crystals that caught the moonlight streaming through narrow windows. The bed beneath me was soft, clean. I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept on something that wasn't a pile of rags on a concrete floor. My hand went automatically to my throat. The collar was gone, actually gone. And my wolf, moon goddess, my wolf was right there, pressing against my consciousness like she'd never left, alert, awake, angry. Easy, Valor's voice came from the shadows near the window. He'd been watching me sleep, I realized, and the thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt only that steady pulse through the bond, concern, relief, carefully leashed power. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Your body needed time to purge the silver and repair the damage. I sat up slowly, testing my ribs. No pain. I touched my face where the enforcer had hit me. The skin was smooth, unbroken. Where am I? My territory, the northern crest. He moved into the light, and I saw he was dressed simply. Dark pants, a loose shirt that did nothing to hide the warrior's build underneath. This stronghold was built into the mountain 300 years ago by wolves who wanted to disappear. We've maintained that tradition. The Shadowborn, I said, remembering whispered stories. I thought you were a myth, ghost wolves who steal pack members in the night. His mouth quirked, not quite a smile. We don't steal. We offer sanctuary to those who've been broken by the hierarchy they were born into. Rogues who want pack bonds without the brutality. Omegas who've been ground down by alphas who forgot that rank is supposed to be about protection, not domination. Before I could respond, the door opened and a woman entered, older, silver-haired, with the unmistakable presence of a healer. Her eyes went wide when she saw me sitting up. Luneth Ashenmore, moon goddess, I never thought I'd see the day. She moved to my bedside with practiced efficiency. I'm Celine. I need to examine you, child. The Alpha said your injuries were extensive. The examination was thorough and increasingly horrifying, judging by Celine's expression. She cataloged everything with gentle hands and a clenched jaw. The scars that hadn't fully healed, the bone fractures that set wrong, the damage to my throat from 3 years of silver burning into skin. This collar, she said finally, her voice shaking with rage. It wasn't just suppressing your wolf, it was poisoning your entire system, disrupting your hierarchy markers, making your body believe you were weaker than you actually are. My room tilted. What? Your rank didn't collapse from trauma, Celine said, looking at Valor, then back to me. It was forced down, manufactured. The silver was blocking your true nature from emerging. What's my true rank? The question came out as a whisper. I can't say for certain until the silver is completely purged, but based on your bloodline and the strength I'm reading now, Celine's eyes softened. At minimum, a beta, possibly higher. Not an omega, never an omega. They'd made me believe I was broken, made me grateful for their cruelty, convinced I deserved it because I was too weak to be anything else. The bond between us, Valor said quietly. I meant what I said. You have 30 days to decide if you want to keep it. I'll teach you to shield it, to control it, so you can think clearly without my presence influencing you. And if at the end of that time you want to break it, I'll find a way to let you go. I looked at him, this alpha who'd saved me, violated my consent to keep me alive, and now offering me the one thing Kaylin never had, a choice. 30 days, I repeated. 30 days, he confirmed. And then, Luneth Ashenmore, you decide who you want to be. Chapter 4. The dining hall shattered every assumption I'd carried about pack life. There was no head table where the alpha sat in judgment, no separated sections for different ranks. Valor ate with his warriors, passing plates and laughing at someone's terrible joke, and when a young wolf, couldn't have been more than 16, accidentally spilled water across the table, no one flinched, no one braced for violence. The kid just grabbed a cloth and cleaned it up while his neighbors teased him. I stood in the doorway, frozen, until a hand touched my elbow. The woman attached to it had scars crossing her face and arms that clearly hadn't healed right. Silver burns, I realized with a jolt of recognition. "Breathe," she said gently. "I know it's overwhelming. I'm Mira, former Omega of the Riverbend Pack, former punching bag, current warrior, and occasional pain in Valor's ass. You were—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Omega? Yeah, wore a collar just like yours for 5 years. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Then the Shadowborn found me half dead in a drainage ditch and gave me a choice: stay broken or learn to break back. She guided me to a table where a massive man with frost-white hair was demolishing what looked like half a deer. He glanced up, eyes the color of winter sky, and I felt the weight of a beta's authority, but tempered, controlled, nothing like Torvin's casual cruelty. "Frost," he introduced himself. "Valor's second. You probably have questions about why we didn't pull you out of there sooner." The thought had crossed my mind. The words came out sharper than intended. Frost didn't flinch. Kalen has council protection. His father was a council member. His territory is considered strategically important, and the council doesn't give a damn what alphas do to their own pack members as long as they maintain order. He leaned forward. "We've been documenting his abuses for 2 years, building a case. But if we'd extracted you by force, it would have been an act of war. Kalen would have demanded council intervention, and hundreds would have died in the fighting." "So you watched," my voice was flat, "while he beat me, starved me, kept me in silver for 3 years. "Yes," Frost met my eyes without shame. "We watched. We waited, and the moment he made the mistake of dumping you in unclaimed territory, we had legal justification to act. I'm not asking you to forgive us for the months you suffered while we waited for that opening, but I am asking you to understand the mathematics of war." I wanted to hate him for the calculation in his voice. Instead, I just felt tired. "Come on," Mira said, standing. "Training grounds. You need to hit something, and I need to see what you're working with." The training grounds were carved into the mountain itself, an open courtyard surrounded by stone. Mira handed me practice blades and took a stance that was all lethal grace. "Show me what you've got, Ashenmore." I moved on instinct, muscle memory from a life before silver and basements. But something was different. I was faster, stronger. When I struck, the practice blade sang through the air with force that shocked us both. Mira's eyes widened. Again, I attacked properly this time, and the power that flooded through me was intoxicating. Every movement felt like I was breaking through water into air, like I'd been fighting with weights chained to my limbs, and someone had finally cut them free. "Moon goddess," Mira braved as I disarmed her in 3 moves. "Luneth, your rank isn't beta." Valor's voice came from the courtyard entrance, rough with something I couldn't name. "No, it's not." I turned to face him, feeling my wolf rise to meet his, feeling power crackle between us like lightning. "You're an alpha. You always were, and now that the silver's gone, there's nothing holding you back from becoming what you were always meant to be." An alpha. Not broken, not weak, not grateful, powerful. Chapter 5. I found Kieran in the observatory 3 days after discovering I was an alpha. He was Valor's strategy master, the wolf who'd planned every careful intervention, every documented abuse, every calculated risk. Dark-eyed and lean, with the kind of quiet intensity that made people listen when he spoke. I'd been avoiding him because every time he looked at me, I felt something I couldn't name. Now I knew why. "You feel it too," he said without turning around. Stars wheeled overhead through the glass dome, cold and distant and honest. don't you?" My hand went to my chest, to the place where Vaylor's bond hummed like electricity under my skin. But there was something else there now that the silver was gone, fainter, silver-threaded instead of golden, but undeniably present. "How is that possible?" My voice barely carried across the space between us. "Multiple potential mate bonds." Kieran finally looked at me, and the pain in his expression was carefully controlled. "Rare, but not unheard of. The fates sometimes offer choices instead of certainties. Usually, the strongest bond gets completed first and the others fade away, but," he gestured between us, "yours and Vaylor's was forced. The threat is there, powerful and real, but you never chose it." "And you're what, the backup plan?" "I'm the option fate left you." He moved closer, and I could feel the pull now, gentler than what I had with Vaylor, but no less real. "I've been watching you for months through those surveillance feeds, watching Kylen break you piece by piece, and I wanted to tear through his territory and drag you out regardless of the consequences. Frost called it madness. Vaylor called it the mate bond clouding my judgment. But you waited anyway." "I waited because hundreds of lives mattered more than my wanting." His jaw clenched. "That doesn't mean it didn't cost me. That doesn't mean I don't lie awake knowing I chose strategy over your suffering." The bond between us ached with his guilt, his longing, his absolute conviction that I deserved better than fate deciding for me in a moment of crisis. "Why tell me this now?" I demanded. "Vaylor saved my life. The bond is already there. What's the point of offering me an alternative?" "Because you deserve a choice," Kieran said simply. "Choose me, and we build something from the ground up. No emergency decisions, no forced bonds to save your life, just two wolves deciding if they want each other day by day with full autonomy." "That's not how mate bonds work." "Isn't it?" His smile was sad. "Bonds can be rejected, broken. It would hurt like hell, but Vaylor would survive it. I would help him survive it. Because what matters more than either of our wanting is that you get to choose your own life for the first time in 3 years. I heard the sharp intake of breath from the doorway and turned to find Vaylor there, something devastating flickering across his face before his alpha control locked it down. "He's right." Vaylor's voice was rough as stone grinding. "The bond is yours to keep or break, Luneth. I meant what I said about 30 days. If Kieran is who you want, if building something without the crisis and the forced intimacy of what we have is what you need, then I won't stand in your way." "You're just gonna let her go?" Kieran's voice cracked. "Just like that?" "I forced a bond on her without her consent because the alternative was watching my mate die." Vaylor's eyes never left mine. "I won't compound that violation by taking away her choice now. If she wants you, if she wants neither of us, if she wants to leave this territory entirely, that's her decision, not mine, not fate's." I stood between them, the alpha who'd saved me and the strategist who'd offered me autonomy, and realized that for the first time since Kalen's patrol found me in the ruins, 2 males were putting my agency above their own desire. That alone was worth more than any bond fate could weave. "I need time," I said finally, "to figure out who I am without a collar, to understand what I want instead of what's been decided for me." "Then take it," Vaylor said. "Take all the time you need," Kieran agreed. And for the first time in 1,095 days, I believed I actually could. Chapter 6. With Vaylor, everything burned. We trained at dawn, his alpha power meeting mine in a clash that made the air crackle. When he corrected my stance, his hands on my waist felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. The bond sang between us, not just attraction, but recognition, like my wolf had been waiting her entire life to find his. "You're holding back," he said, circling me on the training grounds. Stop being afraid of your own strength. I'm not afraid. He moved faster than thought, disarming me, pinning me against the stone wall with his body. The bond roared to life, and I felt everything, his restraint, his hunger, his absolute certainty that I was his and he was mine and nothing else mattered. You're terrified, he breathed against my ear. Not of me, of this, of wanting something so completely that losing it would destroy you. I shoved him back with alpha strength that surprised us both. Maybe I have a right to be terrified. Maybe I need to be more than someone's mate, more than someone's omega, more than someone's anything. Understanding flickered across his face. You think choosing me means losing yourself again, doesn't it? He stepped back, giving me space I hadn't asked for but desperately needed. Not if I have anything to say about it. With Kieran, everything was gentle. He taught me strategy in the war room, showing me maps and supply lines and the careful mathematics that kept packs from destroying each other. His presence was calm water after Valor's wildfire, no overwhelming bond, no fate screaming that we belonged together, just two people choosing to spend time in the same space. You're good at this, he said, watching me plan a hypothetical extraction, seeing patterns, anticipating consequences. 3 years of survival will do that. I moved another marker on the map. You learn to read situations fast when your life depends on it. His hand covered mine, gentle. You're safe now, you know that, right? And I did feel safe with Kieran, safe and in control, and like I was making a choice instead of being swept away by forces I couldn't fight. But as I looked at his patient expression, I realized something that made my chest ache. I wasn't choosing him. I was choosing not to choose Valor, running from intensity instead of running towards something real. The realization must have shown on my face because Kieran's smile turned sad. You're the comfortable option, aren't you? Kieran! It's okay. He squeezed my hand and let go. I'd rather you figure it out now than resent me later. The nightmares came that night. I woke gasping, the phantom sensation of silver burning into my throat, Torvin's voice echoing in my skull. Worthless, trash, omega. I stumbled from my room and found the common area, where 3 young wolves were huddled together, new rescues, Mira had said, pulled from a pack where omegas were kept in cages. They flinched when they saw me, and I felt their terror like a physical thing. Hey, I said softly, sinking to the floor across from them. I'm not going to hurt you. The smallest one, a girl who couldn't have been more than 14, was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Without thinking, I reached out with something I hadn't known I possessed. Not alpha dominance, but something deeper, warmer. I felt her fear, her trauma, the wounds that silver collars and cruel hands had left on her soul. And somehow, impossibly, I could touch those wounds, soothe them. Not erase them, the scars would always be there, but ease the immediate agony enough that she could breathe. Her shaking stopped. Her eyes widened. "What did you do?" she whispered. I don't know, but I could still feel it, this new ability humming under my skin, the gift of someone who'd survived drowning and learned to breathe underwater. But I think I can help. One by one, the other young wolves crept closer, and I touched their pain and eased what I could. When Valor found me an hour later, I was surrounded by sleeping rescues and my hands were glowing with soft golden light. Luneth, his voice was filled with awe. Do you understand what you're doing? Healing them, sort of. You're doing what most alphas spend lifetimes trying to achieve. He knelt beside me, careful not to disturb the sleeping wolves. "You're touching their trauma and teaching their wolves it's safe to hope again." I looked at my glowing hands, at the peacefully sleeping survivors, and understood something fundamental. This power, this gift born from my own suffering, this was who I was meant to be. Not Vaylor's mate, not Kieran's choice, not Kaelin's victim, just Luneth Ashenmore, alpha, healer of broken wolves. Finally, completely, myself. Chapter 7. The messenger arrived at dawn with blood on his boots and terror in his eyes. "Kayla knows she's alive," he gasped, stumbling into the war room where Vaylor, Frost, and Kieran were already gathered. "He's claiming theft of pack property. He's demanding her return or he'll petition the council for sanctions." I stood in the doorway, watching Vaylor's expression turn to stone. "Pack property?" he repeated, voice deadly soft. "He's calling her property." "The council is listening." The messenger was one of their informants, a wolf who moved between territories gathering intelligence. "They're afraid of the Shadowborn. You've been pulling too many Omegas from traditional packs, offering them sanctuary, showing them there's another way. The old Alphas see it as a threat to the entire hierarchy system. They're looking for an excuse to move against you, and Kaelin just handed them one." Frost slammed his fist on the table. "So we go to war. We've been preparing for this." "War means hundreds dead, maybe thousands if other packs join Kaelin's cause, and the Omegas still trapped in those territories will be the first casualties. You know how Alphas punish their packs when threatened." They were talking about me like I wasn't there, like this was their problem to solve, their war to fight. And maybe a week ago, I would have let them, would have hidden behind Vaylor's strength and been grateful someone else was making the decisions. But I'd discovered I was an alpha. I'd learned I could heal broken wolves with a touch. I'd remembered who I was before Silver and Basement stole my name. "No," my voice cut through their planning like a blade. "This is my fight." Vaylor's head snapped toward me. "Luneth, I took 3 years of my life." I walked into the room, feeling my alpha power rise to meet his. "He beat me, starved me, kept me in silver, convinced me I was worthless. Then he dumped me like trash and called it mercy. And now he wants me back?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Not because he values me, because I'm proof that Omegas can escape, because letting me go free threatens everything his authority is built on." "That's exactly why this is our fight," Vaylor argued. "You don't owe him anything. You don't owe the council anything. Let me handle this." I moved until I was right in front of him, close enough to feel the bond humming between us, strong and golden and absolutely certain. "If I hide behind you now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I'm strong enough to stand on my own. I'll always be that broken Omega you saved instead of the alpha I actually am." Understanding flickered in his eyes. "So what are you proposing?" "Ancient pack law allows for direct challenge." I looked at Frost, at Kieran, at the maps spread across the table showing territories and battle lines. "I challenge Kaelin for leadership of his pack. He claims I'm his property? Fine, let him try to reclaim me in a fight where the council has to acknowledge I'm his equal." "He'll kill you," Kieran said flatly. "He's been alpha for 15 years. He's brutal and experienced, and he'll have no mercy." "Neither will I." I felt my wolf rise up, felt the power that had been suppressed for 3 years now fully awake and hungry. And I won't be fighting just for myself. I'll be fighting for every Omega still wearing a silver collar, every wolf who's been told they're worthless because of their rank, every survivor who needs to see that we can fight back and win. Vaylor stared at me for a long moment, then pulled me against him with enough force to steal my breath. The bond flared between us, not demanded, not forced, but chosen. I felt his fear, his pride, his absolute faith that I could do this. "Accept it," I whispered against his chest. "Accept that I'm choosing you, not because I'm running from autonomy, but because I want this. I want you, but I want it on my terms, fighting my own battles." His hand came up to cup my face. "The bond? Make it permanent. Not to save my life this time, because I'm choosing my mate the same way I'm choosing my fight, with full knowledge of what it costs and what it means." Valor's eyes blazed. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed me, and the bond snapped into its final form. Not fate's demand, but our decision. When we broke apart, I turned to face the others. "Send word to Kalen," I said, my voice carrying alpha authority that made even Frost straighten. "Tell him Luneth Ashenmore accepts his claim under the condition that he face me in challenge for leadership of his pack. And tell the council that if they side with him now, they're admitting they believe alphas have the right to own wolves." Kieran smiled, sharp and fierce. "That's going to cause chaos." "Good," I said. "Let it burn." Chapter 8. The clearing was packed with witnesses. Representatives from all 5 major packs formed a circle around the combat ground. Alphas, betas, warriors who'd come to see the Omega turned Alpha challenge the wolf who'd broken her. The council sat in judgment, their expressions carefully neutral, but I could smell their anticipation. They wanted me to fail, wanted proof that the old hierarchy still held, that wolves like me stayed in our place. Kalen stood across from me, larger than I remembered, more brutal. 3 years of viewing him from my knees had distorted my perception. Now, meeting him eye to eye, I saw what I'd never been allowed to see before. He was afraid. "Luneth," his voice carried across the clearing, dripping false concern. "You don't have to do this. Come home. We'll forget this happened. I'll even remove the collar requirement if you—" "If I what?" I cut him off. "Bow? Submit? Go back to scrubbing blood from cobblestones while your enforcers practice their kicks on my ribs?" His expression shifted to something uglier. "You were nothing when I found you. Ash and trauma, broken beyond repair. I gave you purpose. I gave you a place, and you repay me with this?" "I gave you hell," I said quietly, and called it mercy. The signal came, a drumbeat that meant the challenge had officially begun. Kalen moved first, faster than his size suggested possible, claws extended for my throat. The crowd gasped. He was going for a kill strike immediately, not even pretending this was about dominance or submission. He was trying to erase the evidence of his crimes. I sidestepped, and his claws raked air. Mira's training had taught me to read an opponent's body, to anticipate rather than react. Kalen fought like he ruled, with overwhelming force and no finesse, expecting submission through sheer brutality. "Still weak," he snarled, circling. "Still broken. You think a few weeks with the Shadowborn makes you strong? You're still that pathetic thing I pulled from the ruins." I struck while he was talking, my fist connecting with his jaw hard enough to snap his head back. Alpha power flooded through me, and I felt Valor's bond surging in support, not controlling, but amplifying what was already mine. "I was never weak," I said as Kalen staggered. "You just convinced me I was." He roared and charged, and this time when we collided, it was claw and fang, wolf power meeting wolf power. He was experienced, brutal, willing to fight dirty. He went for my old injuries, the places where ribs had broken and healed wrong, where his enforcers had practiced their cruelty. But pain was an old friend now. I'd learned to fight through it, to use it as fuel rather than limitation. I caught his arm mid-strike and twisted, feeling bone grind. His howl of pain was satisfying in ways I'd never admit out loud. "This is for every Omega who couldn't fight back." I drove him to his knees with alpha dominance, not the twisted version he'd wielded like a weapon, but true authority earned through strength and survival. His wolf tried to resist, but mine was stronger, tempered in fire and silver and 3 years of systematic destruction that failed to break me.
"Yield," I commanded. "Never." I could have killed him. Moon Goddess knows he deserved it. One strike and I could end the wolf who'd stolen 3 years of my life, who'd convinced me I was worthless, who dumped me to die and called it kindness. But killing him would make me the monster he tried to create. Instead, I leaned close enough that only he could hear. "You're going to live with what you did. You're going to watch your pack thrive under wolves who actually understand what leadership means. And every single day for the rest of your life, you're going to remember that the Omega you destroyed became the Alpha who defeated you." I straightened and addressed the council, my voice carrying across the stunned silence. Under ancient pack law, Kalen's pack is now under Shadowborn protection. Every Omega, every wolf who suffered under his rule, gets a choice: stay and rebuild or come with me. But the collars end today. Kalen lay broken in the dirt, and I felt nothing but the cold satisfaction of justice served. The council's head alpha stood, expression unreadable. "The challenge is acknowledged. Kalen Ashenmore is recognized as Alpha. The pack transfers as claimed." I turned my back on Kalen and walked toward Valor, who waited at the circle's edge with pride blazing in his eyes. "Not bad," he said, pulling me close. "Not bad," I laughed against his chest. "I just took down an Alpha and claimed a pack." "I know," he kissed the top of my head. "I was there when you were dying in my arms, and I'm here watching you become exactly what you were always meant to be." Behind us, I heard movement, Kalen's wolves approaching slowly, carefully, Omegas still wearing collars, warriors who'd enforced cruelty because they thought they had no choice. I turned to face them, my new pack, and smiled. Who wants to learn what freedom actually feels like? Chapter 9. The training grounds echoed with the sound of clashing weapons and triumphant shouts. I stood at the observation deck, 2 years and a lifetime away from the wolf who'd counted scratches on a basement post, watching Mira demolish a group of advanced trainees with the kind of precision that made even Frost nod in approval. 3 of those trainees had been Kalen's Omegas once. Now they moved like warriors, heads high, collars gone, fighting with the ferocity of wolves who'd learned that survival wasn't the same as living. "They're getting good," Valor said, materializing beside me the way he always did, like my wolf had known he was coming before my conscious mind caught up. 2 years of being properly mated had only intensified the bond between us, until sometimes I couldn't tell where my strength ended and his began. I didn't mind anymore. "Mira's a better teacher than either of us," I admitted, shifting the weight in my arms. Ash made a small sound, not quite a cry, just a reminder that he existed and demanded acknowledgement. At 3 months old, he already had his father's ice-blue eyes and, unfortunately, my stubborn temperament. Valor's sand came to rest on our son's head, gentle despite the warrior's calluses. He's going to grow up thinking this is normal. Omegas who lead, alphas who serve their packs instead of ruling them, laws that actually protect the vulnerable. The Sanctuary Accords. I still couldn't quite believe we'd done it, convinced the Council of Alphas to adopt protections that made Omega abuse a crime punishable by loss of territory. It had taken 2 years of political maneuvering, strategic alliances, and Kieran's brilliant manipulation of pack law precedents. The old Alphas fought us every step. Until you reminded them that their daughters and sons could be born Omega too. Valor's smile was sharp. That was the turning point, making it personal.
Below us, Mira called a break and the trainees scattered. One of them, Sarah, who'd worn a collar even more brutal than mine, looked up and waved. Her grin was fierce and free and absolutely fearless. I waved back, feeling that familiar warmth in my chest. The healing gift hadn't faded with time. If anything, it had grown stronger, until sometimes I could feel the pack's emotional wounds like they were my own, and soothe them with just a thought. "Kieran's bringing his mate for dinner tonight," Vaylor mentioned. "He wants you to meet her properly." About time. Kieran had found his true mate 6 months ago, a warrior from the Eastern Pack who matched his strategic mind and apparently had no patience for his tendency to overthink everything. They were sickeningly happy together, which made the leftover awkwardness from his confession finally completely fade. Some wolves were meant to be lovers, others were meant to be family. Kieran was my brother in all the ways that mattered. Ash squirmed, and I adjusted my hold, feeling the phantom ache where my collar used to burn. The scar was still there, a silver line around my throat that would never completely fade. I'd refuse the cosmetic healing Celine offered.
Some scars needed to be remembered. "What are you thinking?" Vaylor asked, reading my silence the way he always could. "That 3 years ago I was left to die in the snow because someone thought I was disposable." I looked at him, at our son, at the pack we'd built from broken wolves and impossible hope. Now I'm the Luna who rewrote pack law, changed the council, gave thousands of wolves the protection I never had. "You did that," Vaylor confirmed. "Not me, not the Shadowborn, you." I shifted Ash so I could see his tiny face, those eyes that would someday understand what his mother had survived to give him a better world. "You want to know something funny? Kalen thought destroying me would prove Omegas were weak. Instead, he created the exact kind of alpha that could tear down everything he believed in." Poetic justice? Something like that. Below, training resumed. Mira's voice carried across the grounds, firm, encouraging, pushing her students to be stronger than they ever imagined possible, just like she'd done for me. I bent my head and whispered against Ash's soft hair, words meant only for him. "You'll grow up in a pack where no one is disposable, where being broken doesn't mean staying broken, where your rank is earned through how you treat others, not how brutally you can enforce submission." Vaylor's arms came around us both, solid and warm and absolutely certain. "Your mother made sure of that," he added quietly. Ash made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been gas, but I chose to believe it was understanding, that someday he'd know what his world cost, what his mother paid in blood and silver and 3 years of survival to make sure he never had to wear a collar. The scars on my throat ached in the cold air. I smiled and held my son closer. Some scars made you weak, others made you the exact kind of strong that changes the world. Mine had done both, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. If Luneth's journey from broken Omega to powerful Alpha resonated with you, subscribe to follow more stories of wolves who refuse to stay broken. Join the Pack family and discover stories of survivors who become warriors, worlds where strength is measured by how you rise, not how you fall. Characters who prove that scars can be the foundation of unbreakable power. Subscribe now and never miss a chapter, because every wolf deserves a pack that sees their worth. Welcome to the Shadowborn. Welcome home.